Hi everybody, welcome into our Thursday night football coverage, the TNF Club, bulkier than a club sandwich, and that's just me. Welcome in, Colum, Mark, Brian. Gentlemen, can you believe we're days away from doing another Sunday show for the Irish NFL show? But first of all, what a game we have coming up tonight. We're talking 20 past 1 or so, and it's on Sky Sports NFL and NFL Game Pass in Ireland. Well, Colum, first of all, welcome in, man. A big game tonight.
Yeah, really big game this evening, and one that should be highly entertaining. I mean, whatever, and we'll get to the Seahawks' inability to defend in a little while. But these are two teams who put up points, and I expect that that's what we will have to look forward to this evening.
What do you think of the Cardinals' chances, Colin, going into the season? Just starting with you, man. So obviously the Cardinals had a crazy end of the game on Sunday, yeah?
Oh, I mean, that's what you live for as a fan, isn't it? Like that. And the fact that Kyler Murray actually saw it on the Jumbotron, because he got turned around just at the end of the play. They did what I wish the Broncos had done with a young QB. They've put the talent around him. You've got Larry Fitz as the old head. You've got DeAndre Hopkins, who's probably the number one receiver in the league at the moment. And then you've got Christian Kirk, who has, I think, 6 TDs this year, which is as many as he has in his career to date. So he has been catching TDs. They've made life easy for Kyler Murray, and they look a very, very dangerous side. Murray's great on the ground. They've got the ground attack going. I mean, I think they are, and I've doubted them because of the Vance Joseph connection in the past, but they've looked the real deal. Isaiah Simmons seems to, and that was the Vance Joseph thing early in the season. They didn't really know what to do with him. I think they showed against the Bills, backs against the wall. The Bills had just gone down. Diggs had caught it. It looked like the game was over, and then the Cards come up with that. I think they're a serious outfit.
Brian, now obviously, your Messiah has went 6th in the NFL draft 2019, but Kyler Murray went number 1 in the draft. Hell of a player. What's your thoughts on the Cardinals so far this season? Obviously, going into tonight's game.
Yeah, the start of the season, I wouldn't say I wasn't high on them, but I just didn't expect them to have the record in which they have, 6-3 at this stage of the season. But I actually go back to a game against Seattle actually a few weeks ago, and I think that might have been the turning point, because whilst they were progressing well, and they'd beaten the 49ers, who were heavily injured even early on in the season, that game against Seattle at home, they were down by 10 points at halftime. They were down by 10 points late in the third, even late in the fourth quarter, they were down by 10 points, and they managed to get the game into overtime. But I think that win has kind of pushed them on in terms of the self-belief. And in terms of Murray, albeit he's thrown 8 interceptions this season, in the last 4 games he's only thrown 1. So I think he's starting to show a bit of maturity in terms of the game, and that comes with Kingsbury as well. He's not running a fast. It's an aggressive and attacking-minded offense. They don't seem to be going hell for leather in terms of the drives. It's very sporadic in terms of how to do it. It's kind of paced. And Murray, with his legs, he's running an average over 60 yards a game for a quarterback, and he's running in touchdowns. He's just such an explosive threat. And that play at the end kind of proves it, because whilst it was a Hail Mary, you still have to get himself in a position to get out on the edge and throw it, and some quarterbacks wouldn't have had that opportunity with the amount of players that were coming around them at the time. So, yeah, it's a huge win, and it's a big game tonight. And if they win tonight, they've got the tiebreaker in 2 games over Seattle, and definitely then favourites for the division.
Mark, welcome into the TNF club, my friend. Obviously, the Cardinals really on the rise. Are you surprised by that? Have you been impressed with their form so far this season?
I'm not surprised. I've been pretty high on them all the way through. I put them as an outside shot of challenging. I thought they were going to challenge the 49ers this year for the division, so I maybe got that part wrong. But no, they've got divine inspiration at the moment. I mean, of course, it's, Hail Murray, D-Hop be with thee. Blessed art thou amongst football plays. So they're 100% on the rise. I mean, look, they have been sporadic. They still think they're a team that, along with the Rams and Hawks, going to fight this to the bitter end, because there is no absolute class act. But Brian just gave the stat about Murray there in the last 4 games, 1 interception. The Hawks have actually been going in the opposite direction. The last 4 games, Russell Wilson's thrown for 7 interceptions. The offense, which was propping them up to that 5-0 start, has fallen away, and then they're back at 6-3. And And to take the division point even further, the Cards currently are 2-0 in division play. If they go 3-0, it's not just about the tiebreaker against Seattle. It's obviously the next key tiebreaker against the Rams if they happen to split their series, for example. So, lots to talk about. There's no way we can get as much excitement as the last game they had. I mean, the last game was nearly 1,100 yards combined, 64 first downs. It was wild. It was wacky. But it's going to be a great game. A little bit underrated is Seahawks defense had their best game of the season last week. Their offense had their worst game of the season, but at least the defense showed some signs of life in keeping the Rams to just 23 points. And they do get, just one last one, Mick, they do get maybe Carlos Hyde back and Pokic at center, who wasn't featured in the first Arizona game. And they seem to miss him quite a bit. So that could be decisive.
And looking at the Cardinals, lads, for me, I'm going to be honest, and I think you're going to laugh. Kyler Murray has surprised me. I actually thought last year when he went number one, I didn't think he would even live up to that potential. He's the first quarterback in the Super Bowl era to have a rush touchdown in 5 consecutive games. And I think he's got 10 rushing touchdowns this season so far. I mean, forget about Kyler Murray, but they're stacked as well. Guys like Chase Edmonds, Kenyon Drake had, I think, over 100 yards last week. The team offensively looks really good. But I think what could really be the difference for the Cardinals could be, and we'll look at the picks that are on, but Budda Baker, 14 tackles last week and an interception. Going up against the Seattle offense, it could be very interesting, shall we say. It was very, very interesting. Talking about Seattle, Colum, what's your thoughts on Seattle? Obviously, it's hard to believe now. I mean, you would obviously call Russell Wilson a veteran now. It seems like only yesterday when that Seattle team and the Legion of Doom were really coming into it. So the Legion of Doom, wow, thanks Kansas City. But it's crazy to think that Seattle team, Colum, have they've kept to themselves in the sense they've kept going. They've been able to plug the gaps in that team, and they're still a contender year on year.
Yeah, they are, and Pete Carroll, as much as I don't like him, he finds ways to do things. Sometimes not always legitimately, as USC found out to their detriment. But he ran out of town before he had to pay any price for that. But he does, he puts pieces together really well, and Russell Wilson is a special player. I was fortunate that I saw him play preseason in Denver years ago on a trip over. I did. I saw him play, and you could tell the kid had something special about him then. He has grown and developed, and obviously the early part of this season, he was on course to beat Manning's records. Slowed down a lot. I think maybe we cursed them. We talked about the three amigos on offense at the time, and it's interesting. When you look at, and Brian was talking about how that game against the Cardinals in the desert kind of changed things for the Cardinals. The Hawks responded to Metcalf chasing down Budda Baker in that game as if they'd won the Super Bowl. And as DeAndre Hopkins pointed out in a tweet after the game, they lost the game. Sure, he chased him down. That was great, but they lost the game. So win the battle, lose the war. I think for me, one of the big issues is their running game, which was so impressive at the start of the season. Both their running backs go out. It doesn't look like Carson is going to play tonight. They might have Hyde back, but I think not having Carson is key. If he was playing, I would feel this game, with the Hawks being at home, even without fans, they might be slight favorites. Without him, and Pete Carroll himself alluded to this, the mix, you've got to have the mix right. Right now, teams know it's going to be all on Wilson, so that's where the focus is. And I do think if they can, having Hyde back will make a difference, but without Carson, they're not the same. They're not the same team.
Brian, do you like Pete Carroll? Because every time we talk about the Seahawks, Colum seems to bring up this whole situation.
It's a bit of a love-hate situation, isn't it? With Carroll, you love him or hate him, because it's not. I hear so many people who just think he's great and he shows great exuberance, and everyone loves the way he manages the team. And then there's people who are completely put off by him. I'd be in Colum's camp. I find them now, even that Super Bowl in particular, when America will be happy when the Patriots beat them in the last second, and the shocking play call not to give it to Marshawn Lynch. People don't tend to bring these situations up. he's lost. Once he's won a lot of games, he's also thrown away some really bad games that they should have won with play calling. I know not necessarily it's on him, but he rubs me up the wrong way. And on the Cardinals themselves, this season is reflective in the stats. They're averaging 32 points a game in offense. Their defense is averaging, in terms of giving up, 30 points a game. They seem to come out the right side of really close games, and we touched on it, myself and Mark, separately. It's always Wilson in the end who has to pull them out and get those wins. And law of averages tends to run, the luck runs out, and it has run out over the past few weeks. Last week, the Rams controlled them, and the week before, the Bills did put a number on them. And I would be leaning towards the Cardinals doing the same this evening.
Brian, thank you very much for that. Mark, go for it, mate. Seattle. Surely you love Seattle after what happened for the Patriots years ago.
I love Pete Carroll. I do love Pete Carroll. I love Pete Carroll because he left the Patriots, and I love Pete Carroll for that play call in that 2014 Super Bowl. And I will always love him for that. It's funny for me. The first game, and this is great because when you start getting the second half of the season, it's not just important divisional games that matter, but you've got a degree of history between the teams even this season. And I go back to that first game, and Colum's exactly right for calling out that Metcalf chasing an amazing athleticism. But so what? You lost it. It's like, I don't know, Benjamin Watson chasing down Champ Bailey in a playoff game. Ultimately pointless. Metcalf, however, the bigger impact for me in that game, the first game I played against Arizona, was he was erased by Patrick Peterson. Yes, Tyler Lockett exploded. He had 15 catches, 3 TDs, 200 yards. But Metcalf was erased. The offense has been sputtering. Obviously, Russell Wilson didn't throw for any touchdowns last game. I'm going to call it slightly differently. It's like the Seahawks are approaching an end of a dynasty here. Like, they built their dynasty on defense. Now, they could evolve and keep in contention, and maybe next season they bounce back with a good draft. But at the moment, they are holding on for dear life by their fingernails. And yes, they're not going to give it up. It's going to be like, Dylan Thomas saying, do not go gently into the good night, rage against the fading of the light. But I think they are fading. I think they are going to fade away. And Arizona, inconsistent as they are the future. And I'm on Kyler. I'm on Team Kyler. I said it last week, guys. Do it for Larry. They're going to do it for Larry Fitz and get back to the playoffs.
You're talking about the end of a dynasty and talking about teams fading. What about Ireland last night, boys? Anyway, not good. Not good, I think, for both Northern Ireland and the Republic. Anyway, look, lads, I've always been like a Seattle fan, even though, look, I can see Colin's face going here. I like Russell Wilson. I think Pete Carroll's great crack. I just love watching him on the touchline. I loved back in the day when Marshawn Lynch, the defense, apart from the time we got blew out in the Super Bowl. I was convinced whenever we were, the Broncos were playing, I thought we were going to win by a lot, and how wrong I was. But I really enjoyed the way they play and the way that Russell Wilson can stage a comeback. And you're right, lads, on what you're saying. He really does control it, and I think that will be the case tonight when we look at our picks in a second. If Seattle are to have any chance in any game this season, it can't just be in Russell Wilson. DK Metcalf has to keep trying the ball out because they are limited now. And I agree on what you're saying, Mark. They are almost coming to an end of something that's going on there. How long can that go on for? Hopefully not too long. So maybe Russell Wilson might go somewhere else in the league. Who knows? But that's not going to happen. But it's an interesting concept. Lads, in terms of picks, obviously a really interesting game. We're all going to watch it till 4:30 in the morning. Yeah. So, Colum, do you want to go? Who's going to win and why? And by how much?
For me, I think the Cardinals will have enough to win. Even though they're away, I think the Seahawks were better against the Rams in the second half last week, but I think the Cardinals have a much better offense. Goff is a game manager. Kyler Murray is the real deal, and he offers you a dual threat. With those three wide receivers, how are Seattle going to manage them? They're not going to be able to control them in the secondary. So I think I can see points for both teams. I expect with Hyde coming back, the Seahawks will. I wouldn't expect Wilson to throw quite as many interceptions, but for me, it's the Cardinals to win a close game. Both of these teams are involved in close games all season, whoever they seem to play. So there's not more in a score, but it'll be the Cardinals.
Brian?
Yeah, I look at the prices in terms of the betting on the game, and I think it's purely a legacy thing because Seattle are favourites and they're 3-point favourites, and I think that's more so down to the fact that they've been so strong at home over the years. But there's no 12th man there this evening, and I agree with Mark. I think the Cards are slowly becoming the team in the division, and I think the Cardinals will win. And I'm going to go with a score of around 30-26 to Colin's point. I think there'll be a score within it, but the Cardinals to put it out.
Yeah, I was just going to do the checklist. I mean, it's at home, so the Seattle will have the advantage of the 12th man. Oh, no, they don't. Oh, but it's Seattle. They've got this really dominant defense. Oh, no, they don't have that. It's Arizona. Surely they don't have an offense that works. Oh, wait, no, they do. So on Mark's checklist, I kind of have Arizona coming out the better side of all of this. It's going to be tight. It's divisional games. They always are. Seattle knows how important it is with the tiebreakers. But Arizona's on the hot streak, and Seattle's on the cold streak. So, unfortunately for me, it's going to be Arizona, and I'd put a touchdown in it. I actually think they'll handle them. Murray, if they have their passing game going, they are super, super dangerous. And everyone has their passing game going against the Seahawks. So, Arizona for me, guys.
If you look, obviously, they're both the same records, right? And you're saying about Seattle being on a cold streak. Seattle in week 1 scored 38 points, 35 in week 2, 38 in week 3, 31 in week 4, 27 in week 5, 34 in week 6. I'm getting the weeks wrong now. 37, 34, and then 16 last week. So they really dropped off against the Rams last week, albeit against an interesting defense in that sense. At the end of the day, this is a massive game for both teams. But I think Russell Wilson just about edges it. And we're talking a field goal here. They've got a couple of really easy games coming up in the next few weeks in the NFC East against the Eagles and the Giants. So I'm just going to leave that there. But, they're obviously, Arizona's in the way up. I think this is a game Pete Carroll's looking at. They have to win this game. They have the Eagles, the Giants, the Seahawks, the Washington football team coming up the next 4 games. That's their next 4 games. And the Jets as well. I didn't say the Jets. That's incredible. So if they win this tonight, they know they have a very, very good chance of that division, in my opinion. I'm going to pick the Seahawks by 3. DK Metcalf, 2 touchdowns, over 120 yards. Now, before we go, Mark has a great trivia question.
It's a trivia question that I like random trivia, guys. I write quizzes sometimes as well, so I always enjoy these things. But I'll just give you one about the Hail Mary, because obviously it's been very prominent the last while. So some people know, obviously, the origin, Roger Staubach using it referring to it in the 75 divisional game against the Vikings, which he won. It originated in Notre Dame, Catholic universities before then. But I'm going to give you a question. Who is the only quarterback in NFL history to throw 2 game-winning Hail Marys?
Aaron Rodgers.
Nope. Game-winning.
Russell Wilson. Kyler Murray.
I told you it was obscure. Younger viewers might not have even heard of this name. But
John Elway.
No. Tim Couch.
Tim Couch?
Of the Cleveland Browns. And his first one was actually the first ever win of the Cleveland Browns as a franchise expansion team. But that's pretty random. I would have gone Aaron Rodgers. I would have gone lots of things. So random trivia for you on the TNF Club as well.
We want Trivia Thursdays every week. All right, that has to happen. Lads, I have to bounce, but I have to thank each and every one of you, right? Because this is like our show. We've done more shows than Ireland have scored goals in the last year. So we've only been around for about a month. So lads, well done. We'll see everybody on Sunday for the Irish NFL show, and enjoy the games tonight, lads. See you next week for a special Thanksgiving TNF Club. Who's bringing the turkey? Brian, yeah.
Brian's got turkey. I'll get the ham.
Okay.
It's fun for you, lads. Good luck. See you later.